Welcome to the Women's Building. And I'm Sen Wiener. I have the honor of representing San Francisco and Northern San Mateo County in the California State Senate. And we're here today to announce Senate Bill 288, which will authorize the California Democratic Party to allow Dreamers and other immigrants to serve as delegates in the party and to run for Democratic County Central Committees in the state of California. We know that today our immigrant communities are under assault throughout the United States, including in California. Just recently, the president threatened once again to engage in sweeps and mass deportations of our immigrant neighbors. And this activity and this behavior by our federal government, by our president, by ICE, has caused enormous fear and anxiety among so many families. And this is on top of the travesty in terms of what's happening at our border and the outrageous treatment of people who are simply trying to come to the United States to make lives for themselves. And so we in California need to continue to send a very, very loud message that we are not going to be a party to this, and in fact, we are going to embrace and uplift and support all of our immigrant neighbors. And that includes making sure that immigrants can fully participate in the Democratic Party and can participate in the leadership of our Democratic Party. And in terms of making political change, working through our political parties is a key part of doing that. When I first ran for the Democratic County Central Committee in San Francisco back in 2004, when I was a younger man, one of the reasons I did so was that as a gay man, I wanted to make sure that the LGBT community had full representation in the Democratic Party. And in fact, that year, a group of us from the Alice B. Toklas and Harvey Milk LGBT Democratic Clubs, we all came together and worked together to elect LGBT people to the Democratic County Central Committee. And we were successful, and we were able to make a lot of change as a result. And for our immigrant communities, immigrants should not have, yes, immigrants should absolutely advocate to the Democratic Party for change, but immigrants should be able to formally participate in and help lead the Democratic Party from the inside for change. And that's what this is about. And I want to acknowledge that this bill idea did not just come from thin air. There's been an enormous amount of organizing within the Democratic Party by the Latino Chicano caucus in the California Democratic Party, by the Latino Democratic Club here in San Francisco, by the San Francisco Democratic Party. And I want to just really give a shout out to the chair of the San Francisco Democratic Party, David Campos, who appointed a dreamer, Sarah Souza, to a vacant seat on our Democratic County Central Committee, sending a very loud message about what our values are here in San Francisco. And we want to make sure that Sarah can run for re-election and meet that filing deadline in December. And so SB 288 will allow the California Democratic Party to authorize Dreamers and other immigrants to run for Central Committee, to serve as delegates, and we would like for the bill to take effect this year in 2018 because of the early filing deadline in December. And so we are committed to moving this bill forward. We have a large coalition supporting the bill, and I want to thank all of the people who are here today and the organizations that are coming on board to work with us collaboratively to pass this legislation. I want to thank also our assembly member, my assembly member for Eastern San Francisco, who's with us here today, David Chu, who you will be hearing from a little bit later, for being a co-author along with a number of other members of the legislature in both houses. So now it's my honor, and I want to welcome him to San Francisco, to bring up the newly elected chair of the California Democratic Party, someone who comes out of the labor movement, who is a staunch supporter of immigrant inclusion in the Democratic Party, Chairman Rusty Hicks.
Well, first I just want to say, Senator Wiener, I appreciate your leadership on such an important issue. And I've only been on the job for 27 days now. So I don't have it all figured out, but I do know that the California Democratic Party at its best is a party of empowerment, of inclusion, of engagement, and support. And that extends to all members of our communities, and especially at a time when we have an administration in Washington, D.C. that seeks to divide and to separate and demonize, in particular those that don't have legal status. Making life hard, whether it be on the border or whether it be in our communities. I believe that we're going to see a change in the White House in 2020. And I think we do that by ensuring that the California Democratic Party, that our national party is as strong as it possibly can be. And it can only be strong if, in fact, it includes every member of our communities. And certainly, undocumented workers, undocumented immigrants, those without legal status, are not staying in the shadows by any stretch. They are standing up, they are speaking out, they are advocating on issues in the improvement of immigrant communities all across this country, and certainly here in California. And so it is such an honor and a privilege to support SB 288 as an important step to ensure that immigrants, those without legal status, can be a part of our party, not just as the senator said, not just to advocate on important issues, but be at the decision-making tables for our party. In the most recent transition for chair, this was something that I really advocated for, to ensure that we expanded the number of vice chair roles within our party to include the participation of at least one undocumented immigrant to be at the highest levels of our party. And I was so pleased when the senator called and said he was moving forward with this legislation, and it was really an opportunity for us to come together and put our values first, which is something I'm incredibly proud to do. And so this is one step. This does not solve every challenge that we have, but certainly is a step in the right direction. And I'm so pleased to stand here with the senator, the assembly member, and this whole coalition to see its implementation. So thank you so much. It's now my honor and privilege to introduce Adriana Souza to give us an example and a story of what this bill and this legislation would mean.
Good afternoon. My name is Adriana Souza, a dreamer and Sarah Souza's sister. Before I start, I would like to take a moment to honor the lives of Oscar Alberto Martinez Ramirez and baby Valeria. I came to this country when I was 12 years old. I went to middle school and high school in San Francisco. I lived in San Francisco for almost 2 decades. I am deeply committed to giving back to the community. In February, my sister Sarah Souza was appointed by Chair David Campos to the San Francisco Central County Committee. Now she wants to pave the way so immigrants have an opportunity to represent themselves. And I'm here to speak on behalf of 800,000 dreamers and 11 million undocumented immigrants who came here for their American dream. In the current political climate, it is painful to see how immigrants are being attacked by the current administration. I am grateful for the state representatives, Senator Scott Wiener, Assemblymember David Chu, Assemblymember Ting, and Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez for introducing the SB 288, which will allow all Californians to have a seat at the table. By uplifting the voice of immigrants, we are creating a more equitable society. Si se puede, el pueblo pa' adelante, thank you. And right now I will introduce you Gabriel Medina, Secretary for Chicano Latino Caucus of the California Democratic Party, and Kevin Ortiz, Vice President of the San Francisco Latino Democratic Club. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Ortiz, and I'm the Vice President of the San Francisco Latino Democratic Club. And I just want to take a moment of silence for the images that we saw at the border this week in remembrance of Oscar Alberto Martinez Ramirez and his daughter Valeria. It's no news to anyone that immigrants are under attack, as we've seen children in modern-day concentration camps, to ICE seen here locally in San Francisco. It's pivotal now more than ever that we provide a seat at the table for our immigrants. Now more than ever, immigrants are welcome and here to stay. It starts with SB 288, but needs to also reverberate out to the economic and systemic issues that impact our Latinx and immigrant communities, especially in housing justice. I want to thank Senator Wiener's office for hosting this press conference to amend the election code to allow non-citizens the ability to run for the Democratic Central Committee. It's the platform immigrants need and deserve. We thank you for sponsoring this bill, Senator Wiener, and for the new faces that are supporting this bill, as well as the old ones currently. However, I want to acknowledge and remind the different parties in this room that SB 288 is a result of community-led and driven efforts starting from the ground up. The Latino Democratic Club elected unanimously our first ever Dreamer, president of the Latino Democratic Club, Adriana Souza, who unfortunately could not be here, but is here with us in spirit. I also want to thank Chair Campos and the Democratic Party for appointing Sara as the first ever DACA recipient and Dreamer to the San Francisco Democratic Central Committee. Can we give her a round of applause real quick? From that effort, we as the LDC put forth a resolution forward to the Democratic Party that will be heard in September at the Executive Board to allow non-citizens the ability to run for the Democratic Party if they have the intent to register as a Democrat when they have the ability to do so. The Chicano Latino Caucus was also the first caucus to help champion and endorse this resolution. They have been pivotal partners in moving this forward. With that resolution moving forward, as well as SB 288 moving forward to amend the election code, we will change the face of the party by allowing non-citizens a seat at the table like they deserve. Thank you, and I want to introduce Gabriel Medina, the Secretary of the Chicano Latino Caucus, as well as the campaign manager for Proposition N, non-citizens' right to vote in school board elections. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So first I want to also commemorate Oscar Alberto Martinez and Angie Valeria Martinez. We must make sure this is the last time we see images like that here in our country. I wanted to, one thing I want to make clear is that, there's a saying that if you're not at the table, that you're on the menu. And I think we've seen that with these homestead children detention centers and the for-profit detention centers. And a seat at the table is really important for immigrants, non-citizens. There are 5 million in California that would have the opportunity to join the Democratic Party so that it could prove that it is the party of immigrants. The San Francisco Latino Democratic Club believes that. I know Senator Wiener believes that. I know Chair David Campos believes that. And the Chicano Latino Caucus in April passed a resolution to say that immigrants have the right to join and affiliate with the Democratic Party. And now we're advancing SB 288 to make sure the election code that immigrants can run for the Democratic Party. This would not be possible without the leadership of our president, Sarah Souza, who authored the resolution for the CLC, for the Democratic Party, and is now fighting in September at the California Democratic Party Executive Board to make sure that the party enforces that, so that when the time comes, the governor can sign it in October, and she could file before December, and she can run for March. So that's what this is about. She's going to help advance many immigrants to be able to have the opportunity. And I have a brief statement from our chair of the Chicano Latino Caucus, Carlos Alcala, and he wants to say, SB 288 is important for our nation. Migrantes have to be part of the discussion. Migrantes must hold a role in the Democratic Party to participate in the solutions. When any community cannot report a crime, the entire nation suffers, and we must end suffering today. This isn't the entire solution, but this is one solution to make sure that, no solutions for us without us. So thank you very much.
Now, I'd like to bring up Angela Chen, who is the Policy Director and Senior Staff Attorney at Asians Americans Advancing Justice, part of the Asian Law Caucus. Angela.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Angela Chen. I'm the Senior Staff Attorney and Policy Director, Advancing Justice Asian Law Caucus. We're a nonprofit civil rights organization located in San Francisco. I'm really glad to be here today to support SB 288 and to thank Senator Wiener for authoring this needed bill. Also thanks to the San Francisco Latino Democratic Club for paving the road to this. SB 288 will remove barriers to non-citizens to serve as members of the Democratic Central Committee or as a delegate to the State Central Committee. The State Central Committee, as a delegate to the Democratic Party in California. Immigrants who are not citizens should be allowed to participate in Democratic Central Committees because the policies that DCCC supports that go on to become law and the candidates they endorse who go on to be elected officials impact all Californians, including immigrant community members. This includes policies that determine who has access to health care and other vital services. It includes policies that limit state and local law enforcement from assisting with immigration enforcement. It includes policies that determine how much financial aid is available to students and to which students. I also want to underscore that immigrant community members have a lot of valuable experiences, skills, and knowledge they can contribute as a member of DCCCs. DCCCs will benefit greatly from having a diversity of perspectives and life experiences in making policy and endorsement decisions. We need to look no further than San Francisco DCCC President David Campos, who came to this country undocumented at age 14 from Guatemala to appreciate the inspiring leadership and insightful perspectives that immigrants bring to these political bodies. So again, thank you to Senator Wiener for authoring this legislation. Looking forward to its passage. That's awesome. And to also introduce Hanzo, who actually came from the Asian Law Caucus and is the San Francisco Democratic Party Executive Director.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Angela. It's an honor to be introduced by someone who fights so hard for our immigrant communities here in California. I am Hanzo. I'm the Executive Director for the San Francisco Democratic Party. I want to thank Senator Scott Wiener, Assembly members Phil Ting, David Chu, Chair Rusty Hicks for their support for this legislation. And I also want to acknowledge our Chair David Campos, who could not be here today. As Angela mentioned, Chair Campos came to this country age 14 undocumented. His story is an extraordinary one. And I want to, all of this started this legislation a few months ago in January when Chair Campos decided to appoint Sarah Souza to the DCCC, being the first DCCC in the state to have somebody undocumented appointed. And at that point, the state law, the party bylaws didn't allow that, so it really was groundbreaking. And so we've seen how in just a few months since then, so much has changed. And that's thanks to the extraordinary leadership of our elected officials, as well as important community groups like Latino Democratic Club and all of the other people in the coalition. And then I'll keep my remarks short. I think that, like everybody has said, this is about giving immigrants a seat at the table. Over the next year and a half, we're going to hear over 20 presidential candidates and Senate candidates and congressional candidates from across the country talk about our immigration system and how they want to reform it and how they want to protect our immigrants. And in that time, we should have the people that are going to be impacted at that table helping guide those decisions, helping make those decisions. So this, I hope, becomes passed and a law and that Sarah can run. And I hope that this is a model that Democratic parties across the country can use so that we can truly become the party of immigrants. Thank you. And I'd like to introduce the Northern California Vice Chair of the Filipino American Caucus, Rob Chua.
Thanks, everybody. My name is Rob Chua, Northern Vice Chair of the Phil Am Dem Caucus of the Democratic Party. Thanks to the SF delegation for the invitation to be part of this coalition, and of course, the leadership of so many who have paved the way for this Latino Dem Club, Chicano Latino Caucus. It's really an honor to be part of this sterling group of people to fight for the same thing, and something that we all kind of have in common, and that we've been thinking about for so long. As an immigrant and elected delegate and Northern Vice Chair of the caucus, I feel hopeful that legislation like this moves us towards some semblance of progress. The public narrative around undocumented communities, for not just dreamers, but also their families, is really multifaceted. It's important to understand that our needs are as diverse as our contributions. That's why in lieu of Census 2020, all voices must be represented. And all those voices must have advocates. And that's why this is so important for me and those of us that immigrated here that never thought that we would have a chance to do what we're doing or sit in rooms like this and communicate to folks like you who also care about this issue. I grew up in Daly City. I learned to organize in a really small community center, the Filipino Bayanihan Resource Center. There's 1.5 million Filipinos in the state. A third of where I grew up in Daly City is Filipino. So as many of you know, those of us that have lived in the shadows and those of us that never felt like the system was working for us, we just kind of kept quiet. But in that quiet, we still built power amongst ourselves. I know my brothers and sisters in the Latino community can feel that. So I think this is just one giant step in the right direction. And while there are still rooms and communities that feel that they still have to remain silent for their own safety, I think to see that there are leaders among us that are going to step up and will have the right platform to advocate for those rights. So again, thank you so much for those of you that are here. Chair Hicks, thank you for adding your gravitas to this. Thank you to our community. With that, I'd like to introduce co-author of this bill, Assemblymember David Chu.
Good afternoon. Let me first start by thanking everyone who's here for believing in a vision where human beings are not considered illegal, where every person in our community counts. I also want to thank each and every one of you because we represent the sons and daughters, the grandsons and granddaughters, or are ourselves immigrants. I want to take a moment, of course, to thank my great colleague, Senator Wiener. As I was coming over here today, I was thinking about the fact that 20 years ago, Scott and I brought a lawsuit against the then INS, the predecessor agency to ICE, on behalf of a legal permanent resident who had been illegally detained by that agency for 2 weeks because they thought he was illegal. I want to welcome, of course, the great chair of our Democratic Party, Rusty Hicks, and say welcome to San Francisco, welcome to the bluest of the blue, welcome to the vanguard of the progressive movement. Among all of the things that San Francisco has done, I want to just mention one thing. On that fateful night when that man was elected president of the United States, San Francisco voted to pass a ballot initiative to say that regardless of immigration status, all immigrant parents should be allowed to vote in school board elections. This was a measure that I had worked on and championed for over a decade. And I mention that because our country has a history of allowing non-citizens to vote, a 150-year history based on the belief that we need our immigrant communities to help lift up our political process, to help improve our political process. We've all been talking about the image of the father and the daughter. I have to tell you, I think for all of us, I have had trouble sleeping the last couple nights because of that image. We have so much work to do because Donald Trump has declared war on our immigrant communities, because Donald Trump is trying to erase our immigrant communities. And I am so honored to be part of this grassroots movement to say, we believe differently. We need to ensure that we uplift all, that all of our human being friends, our family members, should be part of this process. This is the kind of society, this is the kind of just society, fair society that we need to live in. This is California. We're going to get this done. Thank you so much for being part of the movement.
Thank you, Assemblymember. And then finally, I'd like to invite up our final two speakers, Vigil, who is the president of the San Francisco Youth Commission, and Luis Zamora, who is the co-president of the San Francisco Young Democrats.
Before I start my speech, I would like to thank State Senator Wiener, Assemblymember David Chu, Chair of the Democratic California Party, Rusty Hicks, Chair of the SFDCCC, David Campos, and President of the Latino Democratic Club, President Sarah Souza. You see, so my name is Vigil. I'm the president of the Youth Commission, executive board member to Latino Democratic Club, and the Harvey Milk Democratic Club as well. I will say that for me, as a first-generation person, someone who was raised and taught values and given the tools by immigrant parents, who I would not be here today if it were not for them. For many of us, this is a nightmare come true. The images we have been seeing, the things happening at the border, the concentration camps that are being set up, this is nothing new. For so long, immigrant communities have been scapegoated in order to justify the mistreatment and the oppression that many communities in the United States have been facing. For so long, we have been told that we are less than human, that we have been taking the jobs of white middle-class Americans. We have been told for so long that we do not deserve to be here today. And for first-generation people who have been labeled as anchor babies by the current and past Republican administrations. I was raised in San Francisco during the time of the recession, thanks to the Bush administration. And I remember the nightmares that I faced, that I had about my mom being held at a detention center. Mind you, I was like 6 or 7 at the time. And remembering and having that dream of having to go rescue her. It is hard, and it breaks my heart. Because for a lot of us, first-generation people who everyone can relate, it falls on us to make sure that our parents, that our family members, our cousins, our aunties, our uncles, our godfathers, our grandparents are represented and whose rights we must fight for day in and day out. That is why I'm supporting SB 288. Because no longer do we have to do this by ourselves in formal positions, but now we can get our parents, we can get our cousins, we can get our grandparents, we can get our uncles and aunties to be interested in the Democrat Party, get them to join the Democrat Party, and get them to run for positions in order for them to be at the table. It is not enough for our policies and issues to be spoken. It is not enough. It is time that we have the representation and the seat at the table so that we can push for our policies and issues the way that we want to. Again, I want to thank everyone who is here today and for supporting us and for being allies. And for our young peoples watching this, who are seeing this and reading this, do not give up. Keep fighting. Do not become disenfranchised. This is not the end, nor is it the beginning. We have been facing this for generations, but we never have given up. Our ancestors never gave up, and we're not going to give up now. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to start out by thanking Senator Wiener for inviting me today. My name is Luis Zamora. I'm co-president of the San Francisco Young Democrats. We are one of the oldest Democratic clubs here in the city, just over 70 years. But what brings us out today is our overwhelming support for SB 288. It's about time that something like this came about, and we're proud to be a part of this historic legislation, and that's exactly what it is. It's historic. Once again, San Francisco and California will be leading the way in a time where the rest of the country, the administration, is chipping away at people's dignity and rights. And so we are very proud to be here today with the rest of the community members, and we would very much like to thank Senator Scott Wiener, Assembly Members David Chu, Lorena Gonzalez, Assembly Members Phil Ting, and the other senators and their staff. That's a lot of work that the staff have put together for this amazing legislation, and we are so proud to be a part of this. Thank you very much.
And I apologize, I skipped over two people who will be our two final speakers, and that is Queen Chen from the Rose Pack Democratic Club, and Dr. Heyman Cho, who's the co-chair of the DSA San Francisco Electoral Committee.
Hi, my name is Quina. I'm the chair of the Rose Pack Democratic Club, and I'm also an elected member of the Assembly District 19. So when the Rose Pack Democratic Club started, one of the main reasons was to provide a voice for immigrants that usually won't have a say otherwise. So I really want to thank Senator Wiener, Assembly Member Chu, and Ting, and Chair Hicks for really supporting SB 288. During the last convention, me and a fellow delegate, Natalie G., wrote a resolution to support language access within the Democratic Party. And we did this to hope that more people can participate and that language shouldn't be a barrier. So SB 288 really completes the circle by allowing immigrants to represent themselves and participate. So it's amazing that this is happening. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Senator Wiener. Thank you to the authors of this legislation, to Chair Campos, to Sarah Souza for her courage and her leadership. Can you hear me? Oh, sorry. My name is Hemin Cho. I'm a doctor of Chinese medicine. I'm a proud member of the DSA in San Francisco, of San Francisco Bernicrats, of Progressive Democrats of America, and I was recently appointed to be a delegate to the California Democratic Party by Chair Campos. I want to say that having been born in Korea, a war-torn country where 5 million people died, where 70% of our flora and fauna was destroyed, I want to say that it is our international policy that creates immigration and refugees, and there is only one planet, and there is only one race. And this bill is a step to acknowledging that we can live without borders, without racism, if we work together and struggle together. And I want to thank you all for this opportunity.
Y terminar en español, hoy estamos enunciando un nuevo proyecto de ley SB 288 y este proyecto de ley autoriza a los inmigrantes a servir como líderes y diputados en el Partido Demócrata de California. Hoy en día nuestro gobierno federal está atacando a los inmigrantes y creando una situación de miedo en la frontera y en California y por todo el país. Y es importante que California apoye a los inmigrantes y que mandemos un mensaje de que los inmigrantes son una parte de California, una parte del Partido Demócrata, y que es importante que los inmigrantes puedan servir como líderes en el Partido Demócrata. Así que vamos a trabajar muy duro para pasar este proyecto de ley. I want to thank everyone for being here today. I want to thank our amazing coalition. There's a lot of passion for this change, and I know that this grassroots movement to empower immigrants in the Democratic Party will succeed. So thank you very much. Apologies, just acknowledge a few people. Megan Imperial from the California Young Democrats Latino Democratic Caucus. Olga Miranda, who I don't know if she's here, SEIU Local 87. Richard Raya from Meta. Again, Sarah Souza, who could not be here today. Assemblymember Alex Walker from Phil Ting's office. Kalima Salahuddin, who is a delegate and also on the Jefferson High School District School Board. Susan Pfeiffer, who is one of our delegates. And Leon Chow from SEIU Local 2015. Thank you very much, everyone. Is that good? Yes. And if anyone else would like to just say a few words, you want to come on up? Would you like to say something? Or, please. Come on up.
Thank you. This is my name is Melba Maldonado, and I'm the Executive Director of La Raza Community Resource Center. And I wasn't planning to be a speaker, but I wanted to witness, and this is why I came. I wanted to witness when wonderful elected from the Democratic Party, when fantastic leadership at the local level, and when a tremendous show of unity get together to make sure that immigrants are at the table. And that's very important to our community. Very important, as Gabriel said, to be at the table and participate. Because, and I have another one, Gabriel, if you're not at the table, you don't eat. And that is something that here in San Francisco and in California, we want to make sure that everybody participates. We pride ourselves in talking about giving force and giving power, empowering communities, empowering families, empowering voters. And it's so important that we really work at it and we allow it. You know, not just to say, well, we have a brown face at the table. We really, really have unity and purpose together to make sure that our immigrants are not persecuted, but most important this year, that we defeat Donald Trump. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Monke, and I have the great fortune of serving on the Immigrants' Rights Commission here in San Francisco. As we all know, San Francisco is a sanctuary city. But what does it mean to be a sanctuary if we cannot see ourselves reflected in leadership? What does it mean to be a sanctuary if our leaders and our public officials and those who govern our parties do not reflect the constituencies and the concerns of our communities? There are those out there who believe that immigrants in this country are not faithful or loyal to the premise of who we are as America. But I say to them, give us an opportunity to lead. Give us an opportunity to demonstrate our commitment to the future of our communities, to the future of our state and of our country. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, everyone.